She didn't call for help first. She didn't wait for sirens. She didn't even take off her shoes. Maya Caldwell heard the crash, looked at the dark river swallowing a car hole, and she ran straight toward it. What happened next was caught on camera. And when the world saw it, not just a rescue, but what came after, everything changed. Cities erupted. Newsrooms went silent mid-broadcast. A mother wept on live television. And one police officer's career ended in handcuffs, his own. But before any of that, before the lawyers, before the verdict, before the $20 million that shook an entire police department to its foundation, there was just a woman, a tired woman, driving home alone in the rain. Before you go any further, drop in the comments where you're watching from. And if stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe right now, because what happens next will stay with you for a very long time. It was 9:47 on a Tuesday night in Savannah, Georgia, and Maya Caldwell was running on empty. She was 31 years old, a pediatric nurse at Savannah Memorial Hospital, the kind of nurse that parents asked for by name when their child was scared, the kind that remembered which kids hated needles and which ones wanted to hold a stuffed animal during blood draws. She had spent 12 hours that day absorbing other people's pain, their fear, their worst moments, and she had done it with steady hands and a calm voice because that was her job, and she was extraordinary at it. But tonight had been hard in the way that stays under your skin. She was driving home in her scrubs, dark navy, still carrying the faint smell of the hospital, taking the Harlow Bridge shortcut over the Talmadge River because it cut 7 minutes off her drive. 7 minutes mattered tonight. Her 16-year-old sister Jade was home alone. The gas bill was 3 days overdue, and Maya had a container of cold jerk chicken on her passenger seat that she hadn't eaten since lunch. She was thinking about all of it at once the way people with real responsibilities always think, in layers, simultaneously, quietly, without stopping. She was not thinking about the river. The Talmadge runs dark in October. It doesn't look like water at night. It looks like a hole in the earth, something that swallows things without sound and asks no permission. The rain had been falling for 6 hours, and the river was swollen and fast and absolutely indifferent to what was about to happen on its surface. Maya saw the headlights first. A silver minivan coming off the north ramp onto Harlow Bridge. Moving too fast, angle wrong, the back end fishtailing on the wet road. She sat up straighter. Her hand went to her door instinctively. Slow down, she thought. Just slow down. It didn't slow down. The impact when it hit the railing was the loudest thing she had ever heard in her life. Metal screaming against metal. The sound of physics overruling everything. And then silence for exactly 1 second. And then the deeper, darker, more final sound of something heavy meeting water and losing the argument with gravity. Maya was out of her car before the splash finished echoing. She hit the riverbank slope at a full sprint, her sneakers finding no grip on the wet concrete, her hands catching the emergency railing, and using it to guide her body down rather than fall. The rain was hitting her face, so hard she could barely see, but she could see the minivan, nose down, sinking fast, the headlights still on under the water, 2 pale green eyes disappearing slowly into darkness, and through the rear window, in the last light before the river took it, she saw him, a little boy, 7 years old, head dropped forward, completely still, a small backpack on the seat beside him with a name tag. She couldn't read yet, but would never forget once she did. Caleb. Maya didn't think. Thinking was for people who had time. She went into the water. The cold hit her like a wall, not cold like discomfort, cold like punishment. The current grabbed her immediately, pulling hard, pulling downstream, pulling with the specific cruelty of moving water that doesn't care what you came here to do. She angled her body into it the way something deep in her memory told her to, chest forward, cutting through rather than fighting. And she swam toward the sinking van with everything her body had left after a 12-hour shift. She reached the rear panel, grabbed it. The van shuddered under her hands, still settling, still rotating slowly as the current pushed the back end around. She had maybe 30 seconds. She hit the rear window with her elbow. Once, a crack spread like lightning across the glass. Twice, the fracture deepened. 3 times, rotating from her core, every ounce of weight behind it, and the window folded inward. Water rushed in. Maya reached through the broken glass, the edges tearing into both forearms, and found a seatbelt buckle. Her fingers were already going numb. She pressed it twice before it released, and Caleb's weight shifted forward into her arms. She pulled, 60 pounds of unconscious child through a broken window, while a river tried to take them both. She pulled anyway. She got her feet under her in the shallows. She walked out of that river carrying Caleb Winters the same way she walked out hard days, one foot, then the other, until the ground held. She laid him on the bank. She turned him. She did what her hands knew how to do. He coughed. Then he breathed. Maya sat back on her heels in the rain, her arms bleeding, her whole body shaking, and for one single perfect moment, there was nothing in the world except a little boy breathing on a river bank and the quiet miracle of a job that needed doing having been done. Then the blue and red lights came around the bend on River Road, and everything changed. Before we continue, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now, because what you're about to read is the part that broke the internet, the part that made grown men put down their phones and stare at the wall, the part that made an entire nation ask one question out loud. How? How do you watch a woman pull a child from a river, bleeding, shaking, exhausted, and reach for your handcuffs? Keep reading, and drop in the comments where you're watching from. We have people joining from everywhere, and every single location gets a reply. Backhand index pointing down. Officer Dale Pruitt had been with the Savannah Police Department for 7 years. 7 years of patrol. 7 years of building the kind of confidence that comes not from wisdom, but from never being seriously questioned. He had received 8 formal complaints in those 7 years. Not one had resulted in discipline. Not one had cost him a single vacation day. In Dale Pruitt's mind, that meant he was good at his job. It meant something else entirely. He pulled onto River Road at 9:53 p.m., killed the siren, and sat for 4 seconds behind his windshield, the way he always sat before entering a scene, scanning, categorizing, deciding. He saw a sinking vehicle below the bridge. He saw civilians leaning over the railing above, some filming, some screaming. He saw a paramedic unit still 2 minutes out. And he saw a black woman in soaking wet clothing crouched over a white child on the riverbank. He had not opened his door yet. He had not spoken to a single witness. He had not gathered one fact. But Dale Pruitt had already made his decision. In those 4 seconds, before his boots ever hit the wet pavement, he got out with his hand on his weapon. Hey, step away from the boy. Hand where I can see them. Maya looked up. Her forearms were bleeding through her soaked scrubs. Her hands, the same hands that had just broken a car window underwater and unbuckled a drowning child, were shaking from cold and exhaustion. I'm a nurse, she said. He was in the river. I pulled him out. He needs. I said, hands up, step away from the child. Now, behind Pruitt, scrambling down the bank slope, came a man whose legs almost gave out the moment he saw the boy breathing. Ryan Winters, Caleb's father, had watched from the bridge above. He had watched Maya go into the river. He had watched her break the window. He had watched her walk out, carrying his son. He grabbed Pruitt's arm. She saved him, Ryan said, his voice cracking in half. She's a nurse. That's my son. She saved his life. I watched her. Sir, step back. She saved my son. Step back from the scene. The paramedic coming down the slope behind Ryan identified herself. Identified Maya. Told Pruitt, clearly, this woman performed the rescue. The child is stable because of her. Pruitt turned, looked at the paramedic, and said 2 words. Hold on. And put his hand back on his weapon. Maya looked at the paramedic. The paramedic looked at Maya. Something passed between them that needed no words at all. Turn around, Pruitt said to Maya. Hands behind your back. The zip ties went on over the cuts from the window glass, over the hands that had just saved a 7-year-old boy's life. The plastic bit into open wounds. Maya didn't make a sound, not because it didn't hurt, because she understood, with a cold clarity that had nothing to do with the river, that making a sound wasn't going to stop this. And she had known this truth her whole life in the way that some people are taught it early and taught it hard. They walked her up the concrete slope in handcuffs. At the top, 8 phones, maybe 10, all raised, all recording, all lit up in a rain like candles at a vigil nobody planned. One of those phones belonged to Tyrone Gibbs, 19 years old, who had been crossing Harlow Bridge when the van went through the railing. He had filmed everything: the dive, the broken window, the rescue, the breathing child. And now this. Tyrone posted the video at 10:31 p.m. with 9 words. She saved that little boy. They just arrested her. He had 340 followers. By midnight, the video had 1.8 million views. By 2 a.m., every major news network had it. By 3 a.m., hashtag Free Maya Caldwell was the #1 trending topic in the United States. And in a pediatric ward waiting room across town, a woman named Dana Winters, Caleb's mother, sat with her phone in both hands watching the video for the 6th time. She had arrived at the hospital to find her son stable, breathing, alive, and had been told that a nurse had kept his airway open on the riverbank until the paramedics arrived, and that this had almost certainly saved his life. She had asked for the woman's name. Nobody could tell her, until the video appeared in her feed and she saw. In the corner of the frame, a hospital ID being dropped into a property bag. Maya Caldwell, RN, Dana Winters typed for 4 minutes straight. She had 510 Facebook friends, mostly school parents and church members. She wrote that the woman in that video had pulled her baby from a river and was currently sitting in a Savannah jail cell, and that she did not have the words for what that meant, but she was going to spend the rest of her life trying to find them. She pressed post. It was shared 19,000 times before sunrise. Meanwhile, in a holding cell that smelled of cold concrete and cleaning fluid, Maya Caldwell sat on a metal bench with gauze wrapped around both forearms and her knees pulled to her chest. She didn't know about the video. She didn't know about Dana's post. She didn't know that her name was moving across America faster than anything Savannah had ever produced. She knew that her shoulder was hurt. She knew her forearms needed proper medical attention she wasn't receiving. She knew Jade was home alone in a dark apartment, wondering where her big sister was. And she knew. She held this like something fragile, like the only light in a dark room, that Caleb Winters was breathing. She had done what she came to do. She closed her eyes and she waited for morning. Outside, the world was anything but quiet. At 6:15 a.m., a civil rights attorney named Renee Okafor stepped out of a black car on the front steps of the Savannah Police Department. She had a leather portfolio under one arm and the particular stillness of someone who had been waiting, not just since last night, but for 3 years. Because Renee Okafor already knew Dale Pruitt's name. She had known it long before she knew Maya Caldwell's. She checked her watch. She could wait a little longer. Before we get into this final section, pause for 1 second. If this story has moved you, if it has made you feel something real, if you believe that what happened to Maya Caldwell should never happen to another human being on this earth, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on your notifications. Share this with someone who needs to see it. Because this last section, this is the one that changes everything. This is where justice stops being a word and becomes a verdict. And we want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city, your country, your state right now in the comments. People are joining from everywhere, and every single comment gets a reply. Backhand index pointing down. Now, let's finish this. Renee Okafor's office on Drayton Street looked exactly like the office of a woman who had never lost sight of why she started. No fancy artwork. No decorative shelving. Just files. Whiteboards covered in timelines. 3 coffee cups at different stages of empty, and a young associate named Jerome Parks who had been awake since midnight cross-referencing every public record attached to the name Dale Pruitt. When Maya sat down across from Renee that morning, still in her damaged scrubs, gauze wrapped wrong around both forearms, canal cold still sitting deep in her bones, Renee didn't offer sympathy first. She opened a folder. 8 complaints, Renee said, filed against Dale Pruitt in 7 years. 0 discipline. 3 of those complaints came with witness statements that are now mysteriously incomplete in the department's official records. She looked at Maya steadily. I filed one of those complaints myself. 18 months ago. A man named Curtis Bland, walking home from a night shift on River Road, detained for what Pruitt's report called suspicious behavior. Complaint reviewed. Closed in 5 weeks. No findings. Maya looked at the folder. River Road. Night shift. A working man going home. Same road, Maya said quietly. Same road. Same pattern. Same officer. Renee closed the folder. You are not an isolated incident, Maya. You are the 9th documented case, and the first one that was filmed from the moment Pruitt arrived on scene. Jerome slid a second folder across the table. We're filing a $20 million lawsuit, he said. False arrest, excessive force, deprivation of civil rights, and pattern of racial targeting under federal statute. He paused. We're also requesting an independent review of the department's entire complaint handling process. That review gets us into files that weren't incomplete by accident. Maya was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the holding cell, the wrong grade gauze, the property bag swallowing her hospital ID. She thought about Jade waking up alone. She thought about Caleb's chest rising and falling in the rain. Tell me what you need from me, she said. Renee looked at her with the specific expression of someone who has been waiting years for exactly that answer. Everything, she said, and I need you to be ready because they're going to come for your reputation before they ever touch your record. They will find every hard moment of your life and dress it up as character evidence. Let them, because what we have is better than anything they can build. She leaned forward. We have the truth, documented, witnessed, and filmed. The trial began on a Monday morning in Chatham County Civil Courthouse, and the gallery was so full that overflow seating had been arranged in a secondary room with live feed, and that room was full too. Renee's opening statement took 9 minutes. She never raised her voice once. She told the jury that a woman had saved a child's life and been arrested for it within 90 seconds. That 4 witnesses had identified her as the rescuer and been ignored. That the charges, obstruction and tampering, had been assembled after the arrest to justify a decision made before a single fact was gathered. This case, Renee said, is not complicated. It has been made to appear complicated by a department that spent 7 years protecting Dale Pruitt's decisions from scrutiny. By the end of this week, you will see the full record of what that protection cost this community. The city's defense attorney used the word chaotic 6 times in 7 minutes. She did not mention the 4 witnesses. The testimony came in waves, each one landing harder than the last. Tyrone Gibbs described filming the rescue and the arrest, and said that at no point had Maya done anything a reasonable person could describe as threatening. He said it told Pruitt directly. She saved that boy, and had been ordered to step back. Ryan Winters testified that he had told Pruitt his son's name, had told him the woman in scrubs saved his life, had begged, had been dismissed with 2 words, step back. Dana Winters took the stand and described sitting in a hospital waiting room being told her son was alive because a nurse had kept his airway open in the rain. She described not knowing the woman's name until she saw a hospital ID dropped into a property bag on a video on her phone. Her voice didn't break once. The courtroom broke for her. And then, on day 4, Renee read the text. A forensic examiner had recovered 127 deleted messages from Pruitt's department-issued phone. Renee read from a printed transcript in a flat, steady voice. No drama. No pausing for effect. Just words. Pruitt's own words. Sent to colleagues about the people he regularly stopped on River Road. She read 6 messages. The 5th one destroyed him. She set the transcript down. Said she had no further questions. Returned to her seat. The jury's faces did the rest. Maya took the stand on day 5. The city's attorney cross-examined her for 3 hours and got nothing because there was nothing to get. The facts were the facts. They didn't bend. Renee asked her one question on redirect. Ms. Caldwell, knowing everything that followed, the arrest, the cell, the last 5 months, if you were on that bridge again on the night of October 3rd, would you go into that water? Maya looked at the jury. She didn't pause. Caleb Winters was 7 years old, she said. He had a backpack with his name on the strap. He was unconscious in a car with 40 seconds of air left. I'm a nurse. She let the courtroom sit in that silence for one breath. That's not a hard question. The jury deliberated for 7 hours. The foreperson, a retired schoolteacher named Gloria Marsh, stood with a verdict form and read into a room that had forgotten how to breathe. False arrest, found for plaintiff. Excessive force, found for plaintiff. Deprivation of civil rights, found for the plaintiff. Compensatory damages, $3 million. Then Gloria Marsh read the punitive award, $17 million. Sending one message to the Savannah PD and every department watching. Patents have prices. Total, $20 million. The gallery didn't explode. It exhaled, the long, shaking exhale of people who had been holding their breath for a very long time. Pruitt was terminated the next morning. The criminal indictment came 5 weeks later. 4 counts: false imprisonment, filing a false report, federal civil rights violations. He was convicted. He never wore a badge again, anywhere. The 3 supervisors who had buried his complaints, 2 resigned. 1 was terminated. The Savannah PD entered a federal consent decree, independent oversight, mandatory body cameras, a civilian review board with real teeth. It wasn't perfect, but it was a flaw where there had been nothing before. 1 year later, Maya Caldwell stood at the front of a community center 400 yards from Harlow Bridge and taught 35 people, nurses, teachers, bus drivers, parents, how to break a car window underwater, how to clear an A-way in the rain, how to know their rights when someone in uniform reaches for handcuffs before reaching for facts. She handed the first certificate to a 24-year-old home health aide named Brianna Cole from the east side of Savannah. Brianna said she hoped she never needed any of it. Maya said she hoped so too, and meant both things completely. Caleb Winters turned 8 in November. Birthday party. 12 friends. A cake shaped like a dinosaur because dinosaurs were currently the most important thing in the universe and everything else was secondary. He fell asleep that night in his own bed, full and happy and completely unaware of how many things had to go exactly right for that ordinary evening to exist. His mother knew. She thought about it sometimes. And then she looked at the light under his bedroom door. And that was answer enough. Maya still drives past Harlow Bridge on her way to work. She doesn't slow down. She has a shift to get to. She parks, walks in, clips her ID to her lanyard, pushes through the doors into the pediatric unit, where someone needs her, where someone is always going to need her. Her hands, when she pulls on her gloves at the scrub sink, still carry the faint scar from the window glass. Faded, but there, visible if you know to look. She stopped looking. She has other things to do with her hands, and she is already doing them. Speech balloon final call to action. If Maya's story moved you, if it made you feel something that stayed, then this channel is exactly where you need to be. We tell the stories that matter, the ones that make you feel proud and furious and hopeful all at once, the ones that remind you what courage actually looks like when it's wearing scrubs and standing in the rain. Subscribe right now. Turn on every notification. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And before you go, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? And one more thing, was $20 million enough? Drop your answer below. Every single comment gets a reply.